Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Uncle 3 Dewey's Ghost Story channel on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed today's ghost stories, and thank you all very much. Let's dive into the first story of today's collection. This story is shared by a young woman living in Binh Duong. She has previously recounted tales of getting lost on Ho Van Tan Street in Siu Chi. You can check out those stories in previous episodes. Today, she shares a story about her cousin who was possessed by a ghost. Her cousin, whom we'll call Ben, is now 10 years old. But the incident happened when he was just 1 year old. At that time, the storyteller was around 15 or 16 years old. Ben was difficult to care for. He spent about 20 days each month in Binh Tan Hospital due to various ailments. At home, he was fussy and cried a lot, making it challenging for the family. One day, while babysitting Ben so his mother could eat, the storyteller decided to take him to a neighbor's house to play. The neighbor also had an 8-year-old brother. As they sat playing, the neighbor's brother suddenly yelled at Ben, asking why he was there and telling him to leave. This startled both the storyteller and her friend, as Ben began crying uncontrollably. The storyteller tried to comfort Ben while her friend scolded her brother, asking why he was behaving that way. The brother appeared confused, as if he didn't understand what had happened. The friend suggested the storyteller take Ben home to calm him down. Back home, Ben continued to cry, and the grandmother scolded the storyteller for not taking better care of him. After explaining what happened, the grandmother instructed her to get some saliva from the neighbor's brother. Despite the odd request, the storyteller complied, and the neighbor's mother explained that her son had been possessed since he fell into a well. Back at home, the grandmother performed a ritual with incense and water from the altar, applying the saliva to Ben's forehead and lips while chanting in Chinese. After a while, Ben finally calmed down and fell asleep. Later that night, the storyteller was awakened by the sound of Ben's mother screaming. Ben was having a seizure, his eyes rolling back. The uncle tried to prevent him from biting his tongue, while the storyteller fetched a cloth for him to bite on. They rushed him to the hospital, where he was treated. The next day, the grandmother sought the help of a Chinese spiritual healer. After receiving Ben's birth information, the healer informed them that Ben had been possessed for about a month. If they hadn't acted quickly, the situation could have been much worse. The boy was about to fall into a trap, as the teacher mentioned. The boy would be caught by a second spirit. If Nam captures the second spirit, the boy will die. Men have 3 souls and 7 spirits, while women have 3 souls. The boy was about to lose his second soul. So the teacher advised that since he had already lost 1 soul, the family needed to perform many rituals. The teacher said he wouldn't charge for his services, only that the family should buy offerings and he would guide them. After consulting the teacher, we rushed to the hospital to ask the boy's parents if they had taken him anywhere unclean in the past month. His aunt remembered that last month. She had taken a boy to visit his grandmother in Dong Nai. On the way, the car stopped at a rest area, and she took the boy out to relieve himself. She was asked if she had asked for permission, as he urinated in the bushes instead of a restroom. She said she didn't know whom to ask since it was on the road. The grandmother suggested this might be the cause, as it might have offended someone. After learning the cause, the grandmother informed the teacher, who agreed it could be the reason. The teacher gave the boy's uncle a talisman to wear around his neck, 1 to place under his pillow, and 3 to burn and drink for 3 consecutive days. The talisman around his neck must not be removed, even when bathing, and must be worn for 100 days. The boy should not leave the house between 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. After giving the boy the talisman at the hospital, the doctor discharged him 3 days later. The teacher advised that when taking the boy home, not to look back and to burn paper money at the door. A female should step over it 9 times, and a male 7 times, before carrying the boy inside. After wearing the talisman and following the teacher's instructions for 100 days, the teacher confirmed the boy's soul had been retrieved. However, it's best to limit his travels until he turns 3. This concludes the short story about your cousin being caught by a spirit. The next story also relates to the younger brother of a female friend. In her neighborhood, there was a wealthy family with a boy named Hung. When he was 3, his parents often left him with your aunt Aunt Sal, because her house was next to theirs. His parents were likely busy working or playing. One day around 9 a.m., you played with Hung until he suddenly bit your hand, leaving a mark. It hurt, so you went home, and he did too. His parents assumed he was at Aunt Sal's, while Aunt Sal thought he was with his parents. He often went back and forth between the two houses, so no one paid much attention. By 11 a.m., when no one had seen him, they started searching and found him drowned in a water jar behind the house. The jar was tall, but the water level was low. However, his head was submerged, causing him to suffocate. After his death, his mother buried him behind the house. 2 years later, she gave birth to another son, Nam, who looked exactly like Hung. After Nam's birth, the family fell into debt, likely due to gambling, and had to sell their land to repay it. They exhumed Hung's grave, and the body was still intact. The family sold the land, and the new owner built a warehouse, but it didn't prosper. Aunt Sal, who used to care for Hung, often felt his presence. The land grew a papaya tree, and one day, your cousin Bai went to play at Aunt Sal's house. He sat under the tree, seemingly talking to someone. Your younger cousin saw him talking to himself, as if playing with someone else. Thinking it's normal for kids to sit and talk to themselves, Vin responded, "No, you have to call him older brother because he's Tan Hung." Hearing this, I was shocked because Hung was a child who died several years ago, drowned in a water tank. How can my younger brother claim to be Hung when Hung died before my brother was even born? Frightened, I told my mother, who waited until 5 p.m. for my father to return from work, and then we went to Dong Nai. Vin was weak from childhood due to calcium deficiency, often experiencing seizures similar to epilepsy, especially when stressed. Recently, he suffered from severe hand-foot-mouth disease, causing painful sores. I thought his weakness made him susceptible to spirits of deceased children. When we arrived in Dong Nai, we took him to a spiritual teacher. My mother noticed the teacher had an altar with a fierce-looking figure resembling Guan Yu. The teacher warned that if we didn't bring Vin that night, he would be possessed. After a successful ritual, the teacher instructed us to bring a live chicken to him the next day at 5 p.m. Initially, my parents thought Vin was fine and considered skipping the ritual, but after 5 p.m., Vin suddenly had a seizure and cried uncontrollably. Remembering the teacher's words, they brought the chicken. The teacher said he knew they wouldn't bring it because the spirit had told him. He mentioned our family was fortunate to receive help. Afterward, Vin was better, and he lived with Father Fangsico until he was 18. He eventually recovered and became healthy. Today, discussing stories about spirits, Duwei shares another cautionary tale, particularly for young people regarding premarital relationships. The story begins when I was in 10th grade and dated a notorious senior. Due to family pressure from my parents' divorce, I considered dropping out. Early in the school year, I had no interest in studying and spent time with my boyfriend at various cafes. Unexpectedly, he drugged my drink and took me to a motel, where he assaulted me. I was unaware and didn't consent, which traumatized me, especially regarding bubble tea. After realizing what happened, I left home, fearing my family's reaction. I took my savings, about $2 million, and went to Tan Pu, Saigon, where I worked as a housekeeper. Within days, my boyfriend found me, and I switched motels but continued housekeeping. 2 weeks later, my family found me in Tan Pu and took me home. They filed charges against my boyfriend for statutory rape. Despite not being pregnant initially, days later, I returned to my hometown and considered quitting school. After family support, I regained my will to study. However, I began craving food, but couldn't eat due to allergies, lost weight, and missed my period. Assuming it was stress-related, I later suspected pregnancy and secretly got tested. I was shocked to discover I was 3 months pregnant, having tested negative during my boyfriend's trial. When she discovered she was pregnant at 3 months, she was utterly confused. Despite her turmoil, she decided to leave home, crying a lot, but ultimately chose to keep the baby. However, she felt there was no connection with the child. One day, while playing in the garden, she slipped and tragically lost the baby. For a year, She was haunted by the images of the tiny fetus's hands and feet. After regaining stability, she returned to her studies in grades 10 and 11. By the time she reached grade 12, she began to feel the presence of her lost child in her dreams. The child often visited her, expressing love and longing. The child mentioned a foster mother, a woman who collected the souls of deceased infants, including those from miscarriages or abandoned at birth. These souls were given a chance to learn and prepare for reincarnation. The child chose to follow this foster mother, but promised to return one day. The child often predicted future events in her dreams, although she couldn't remember the details upon waking. However, when the events occurred, she realized the child had warned her. On one occasion, the child saved her from a traffic accident by warning her just in time. Despite these experiences, the child continued to visit her, sometimes scolding her for being careless. The child also accurately predicted her success in a university entrance exam, indicating it would be difficult to stay connected if she moved far away. The child seemed to have limited abilities, unable to find her if she went too far. Throughout these experiences, the child remained a guiding presence, even disapproving of a relationship she had in grade 12, which later ended in betrayal. The words of your child in the dream still echo in your mind. The child said, "I told you before, Mom, but you didn't believe me." Sometimes you think of your child as an old soul visiting you for quite a long time, and you've grown accustomed to it. Then one day, the child said, "I might have to leave soon, Mom. I won't be by your side anymore, but you'll always be my mom. I'll go find a father for you, a new man. While I'm looking for a father, I'll travel here and there, because once I reincarnate, I won't be able to go anymore." The child's predictions seemed naive and amusing, as if you were two friends, one from the afterlife, one from the living world. The child returned that night and said, "My future dad won't be handsome, but he'll be tall. A bit silly, but you and Dad will meet by chance. Your love story won't be beautiful, but you'll be very happy together." Indeed, shortly after, a new man came into your life, and you met him in a very unexpected way, just as the child said. You and this new man met through a chatting app, sharing sad stories about your past relationships. Over time, you grew closer without realizing it. Initially, you thought he was just an online acquaintance until one day he showed up at your door, surprising you. After meeting him, you felt happy, wondering why you focused on someone who didn't care about you instead of someone who did. Perhaps it was due to a past relationship that left you scarred. The night you and your new love officially got together, the child visited one last time, saying, "I'm going for real this time, Mom. If you meet someone who says they're me, don't go with them because it's not me. If you do, you'll leave Dad forever." Since then, you haven't seen the child again. You're now in your final year of university, and your relationship is happy. Although you have many stories to share, you're busy with studies, so you haven't sent more stories to Zue yet. We'll wait for your next stories. After hearing your story, Due feels more sympathy than blame. It's clear that you lacked family support and made youthful mistakes, which is understandable. However, it's a valuable lesson for young people considering premarital relationships. Our story ends here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help Zue. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for more great stories. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel of Ghost Stories by Due. I hope you enjoy an exciting session of listening to ghost stories. Now, let's dive into today's story. Today, Due will tell a story about young men on military duty, specifically ghost stories in the military area. Due has shared many such stories before, but this one is particularly terrifying and unimaginable for such military zones. Today's story is titled Night Watch. The first story was sent by a man who participated in military service back in 2014, serving in the Russian Navy. Like others, everything was unfamiliar to him upon joining the military. Initially, he was only taught basic regulations and how to make his bed, without much else. However, by the second month, he was assigned to night watch duties, and that's when things started happening. On that night, his group consisted of 11 people, including the squad leader. When he was called for duty, he checked his watch, and it was already 11:50 p.m. That night turned out to be a terrifying experience he remembers to this day. His task was to patrol around, checking if any soldiers were secretly using their phones. Although phone use was allowed during free time or on days off, it was prohibited otherwise. While on patrol, he felt thirsty and went to find a water cooler, which was about 10 meters from the restroom. As he drank, he noticed a shadow dart past the restroom door. Behind the restroom was a dense forest. Every night, especially that night, the sound of owls, which he disliked, was prevalent. The eerie calls of these birds were unsettling, and they were considered bad omens, similar to how owls are viewed. Initially, he didn't think it was anything supernatural because he hadn't experienced anything unusual before. After drinking, he decided to check the restroom to see if anyone was there. If he found someone, he planned to report it the next morning. The restroom block was on the left of the company quarters and had 10 stalls. He checked each one, finding them all closed except the last, which was slightly ajar. Assuming someone was inside, he called out, asking if anyone was there, but received no response. He decided to wait outside, expecting the person to come out so he could record their name. Despite waiting, no one emerged. He called out again and was startled by a voice echoing from inside, claiming to be someone named Vu. The voice was unsettling, echoing throughout the restroom. Feeling uneasy, he decided to wait outside for the person to exit. However, no one came out. The sound of owls intensified, and it seemed like a flock had gathered, their cries filling the night. His head was spinning around above him, staying there until he turned on the light, but he couldn't see the owl's head. However, he could still hear its sound. At this point, he checked his watch and realized it was already 3:35 a.m., with only 15 minutes left on his shift. He kept waiting, but the other person hadn't come out, which made him feel uneasy. He decided to step into the restroom area and noticed the light was still on and the faucet was running continuously. He thought it was normal. Maybe someone had a stomachache and needed more time. But seeing that his shift was nearly over, he decided to check the barracks again to ensure everyone was present. After counting, he found everyone accounted for, so he went back to the restroom. The light was still on, and the faucet was still running, making him wonder who was in there. Feeling frustrated, he decided to check the last stall, only to find it empty. He was annoyed because someone had made him check twice. If they needed to leave, they could have just informed him, so he could note it down. As he checked the restroom one last time, he noticed the owl sound were fading away. With his shift over, he returned to the barracks to hand over the shift to the next person. The next day, during lunch, he remembered the incident and asked his roommate, who slept on the top bunk, if he had heard the owl sounds. His roommate said he hadn't heard anything unusual as he was up texting all night. This made him question if he was just imagining things due to exhaustion. The following night, he was on duty again at 1:50 a.m. After a while, he felt thirsty and went to drink water and used the restroom, which took until 2:15 a.m. As he left the restroom, he heard the light switch in the restroom turn on. Turning back, he saw the restroom lights were on again. Frustrated, he wondered why someone was sneaking around without informing him, as it could cause trouble if a superior noticed. Determined to find out who it was, he approached the restroom. As he reached the steps, he heard the owl sounds again, louder and seemingly from above him. He looked around but saw no owl. Although he didn't believe in ghosts, he felt goosebumps. He recalled turning off the lights and faucets earlier, so he was puzzled why they were on again. He turned them off and proceeded to the last stall, where the faucet was running as if recently used. While turning it off, the door slammed shut. He initially thought someone was playing a prank, but when he jokingly called out, he was answered by a woman's voice, which was impossible in the military barracks. Realizing something was wrong, he felt a chill and the lights went out. He knew he was experiencing something supernatural. He felt paralyzed, unable to move, with the woman's voice and the owl sounds growing louder. In that moment of terror, he saw a horrifying sight on the ceiling, a mass of hair moving across it. He laughed, oh my, he laughed so loudly at me. Dukin couldn't move or do anything. He just kept chanting Buddha's name silently with his eyes closed. Then he heard a loud scream, like it was angry at him. Startled, he opened his eyes and saw a head hanging down from the ceiling, about 2 meters long, with hair covering its neck. It was right in front of him, just a few centimeters away. He couldn't move, just closed his eyes and continued chanting. After a while, he felt like a hand was pulling him up, and then another hand covered his mouth, preventing him from screaming. He wanted to call for help, but the hand kept him silent. Then he heard his roommates saying, "If you die, how will they find out and punish us?" "Oh my, were you scared yesterday? Why did you come back here?" When he opened his eyes, he saw his roommate, Tuan, but he was too exhausted to respond. His body was numb, and his back hurt a lot. Seeing him so weak, Tuan helped him back to the dorm to sleep. He was so tired that he slept through the next day. The officers knew he was sick, so he didn't have to work. When he woke up, Tuan brought him a bowl of porridge to regain his strength. Tuan had asked the officers for permission to cook porridge for him because everyone knew he was sick. After eating, he told Tuan about the previous night's incident and asked how Tuan found him in time. Tuan didn't answer right away, but later brought a green drink like penawar juice and said, "Drink this. I'll perform a ritual for you." Surprised, he asked, "What ritual are you doing?" Tuan didn't reply, but asked if he had seen anything strange lately. He told Tuan about seeing an owl and someone using the bathroom without telling him, but when he checked, no one was there. Tuan explained that new recruits often experience such things due to their weak spirits. He mentioned that he heard him talking about the owls and suspected something, but didn't pay much attention. While playing soccer, a friend noticed his dark aura and warned Tuan. Later, Tuan woke up in the night and didn't see him, so he went searching. Outside the bathroom, he heard strange noises and found him talking nonsense. Realizing he was under a spell, Tuan confronted the spirit, though he hadn't fully mastered his family's rituals. He struggled for a while, but eventually drove it away with help from friends who knew how to deal with spirits. Tuan revealed that the spirit said it was attracted to him because of his aura, which annoyed it. In the military, superstitions were forbidden, so Tuan had to secretly perform the ritual when everyone was away. After Tuan's help, everything returned to normal. After 3 months of training, he was transferred to WATCH+LIFE for work, but Tuan stayed at the unit. Despite considering the transfer, he decided to remain where he was. During my time with Tuan after 3 months as a recruit, we still had 15 months left. Since he continued to stay there, the following months were not just about me seeing things, but everyone in his unit experienced even scarier situations. That was the end of the first story when I joined the Navy. The second story is also about the military, but involves old guns. This guy enlisted in March 2021 at a certain division, which Duwei did not name. Initially, nothing happened after enlisting. The officers were quite kind, and everything was normal until everyone received their assignments and AK rifles. At this point, the new recruits were tasked with maintaining and safeguarding their AK rifles throughout their training period. As a result, they treated their guns like family members, fearing the loss or damage of any part, as they would have to compensate for it. Additionally, repairing these old guns was difficult due to their age. This friend was very meticulous, treating his gun as if it were a family member. However, things couldn't always be perfect. One day during training, he accidentally dropped his rifle on the ground. From that day, things began to happen. That afternoon, as he prepared to go to class, he opened the locker to retrieve his gun, but it was missing. Panicked, he asked the platoon leader to check for him. When the leader opened the locker, the gun was still there. He handed it to the friend, saying, "See, it's here. You reported it missing." The friend took the gun to class, but it felt much heavier than usual. During training, he struggled to aim properly due to its weight, feeling exhausted. Seeing his fatigue, the platoon leader suggested he rest and leave early. That night, after returning to his place, he went to sleep around 9:30 p.m. After everyone else had gone to bed and the lights were turned off, only the guards remained. Exhausted from training, he fell into a deep sleep. In his dream, he saw someone standing near his bed, watching him. Startled, he grabbed a flashlight and scanned the room, but saw nobody, thinking it was just a dream. He fell back asleep, but later felt the same presence. He silently asked, "If there's something I've done wrong, please show yourself so I can address it." Suddenly, 4 Russian soldiers appeared before him. Their faces were stern, standing at the foot of his bed. In his dream, he asked them why they were there. One soldier didn't respond, but pointed to the gun locker. The other 3 spoke in unison, explaining that the gun belonged to the soldier from the Vietnam War era, and he took great care of it. Since the friend had dropped the gun, the soldier came to inform him. In his dream, he apologized, promising to take better care of the gun. The soldiers disappeared, and he woke up at 3 a.m., checking the room with a flashlight. The next morning, his friends asked why he was using the flashlight at night. He called home, asking his family to visit a temple to make offerings, and he never saw the soldiers again. After completing recruit training, he moved to the reconnaissance company, changing his sleeping quarters. Before sleeping, he worried about being haunted again and prayed to any spirits not to disturb him so he could complete his duties. Everything seemed normal until he went on guard duty. He was scheduled to replace the previous guard at 1 a.m. Upon arriving, he couldn't find the previous guard. Searching, he saw a soldier standing at the entrance, facing away. He called out to him, who was deeply asleep and reluctant to get up. They returned to the entrance, but the soldier was gone. Scared, he abandoned his post and went back to sleep. The next time he was on guard duty, he was relieved to find a real person, not a ghost. I was sitting absent-mindedly on a chair when it felt like someone slapped the back of my head. It startled me, but I didn't think much of it, wondering who would sneak up and hit my head like that. Convinced it was the previous guard teasing me, I got up and wandered around looking for him. After walking for a while, I ended up near a large warehouse. It was dark inside, and I couldn't see anything. However, as I stood close to the building, I heard murmuring sounds as if many people were talking inside. Frightened, I ran back to my sleeping quarters and decided not to sit outside anymore. The next morning, I asked the officers if our unit was haunted. They just laughed and denied it. But I was suspicious. I later learned from some older soldiers that this place used to be a bar for American soldiers, which was bombed, killing everyone inside. There's still a remnant of the bar, but it's kept secret, and the public isn't allowed to visit. I was told that this place is haunted because many soldiers died here. I was spooked and decided not to wander around aimlessly anymore. On some nights, while on guard duty, I would hear footsteps, as if a group of people were marching around the unit. Looking out, I could see a group of headless figures walking around the base. Our unit regularly holds rituals to appease the spirits. There's another story about grenade training at our division. This area is considered very mysterious and spiritual. In the past, during live bomb exercises, accidents often happened, resulting in deaths. Some of those who died were buried right there. There are graves from as far back as 1975, from when Pol Pot's regime fell. Because of this, the area is considered sacred. We were advised to respect the graves when practicing there. During one such practice, a fellow soldier, who was quite bold, decided to sit on a grave to prove he wasn't scared. Soon after, he started behaving oddly, like a cat, and climbed a 2-meter pole. Everyone saw it and realized what was happening. The officers had to apologize to the spirits before he climbed down. He was taken to the military hospital because he remained unsettled. Eventually, a spiritual healer was called to perform a ritual, which calmed him down, although he remained weak. That day, our grenade training was postponed to the next day. There's also a story about a girl who hanged herself in the 11th Company of the 1st Regiment. If I have time, I'll share that story too. That's the end of today's story about night guard duty in the military. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Dewey's YouTube channel. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more stories. Goodbye and thank you all. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel of Ghost Stories by Uncle Ba Dewey. I hope you have an exciting time listening to ghost stories today. Let's start with the first story of the day. This story was sent by a woman, and it can be seen as a plea for her and her newborn child. She shared that she is currently in a relationship with a man who was previously married. 2 years ago, his wife passed away due to heart failure. According to the information she received, his late wife was older than him. Before marrying him, she had been married once and had a child of her own. After marrying him, They had a son together who is now in his 20s. This man is nearing 50 years old, while his deceased wife was in her 50s. It's important to note that the woman only started dating this man 2 years after his wife passed away, not immediately after her death. However, she was unaware of the fact that after his wife's death, the late wife frequently returned to disturb him, preventing him from having a new wife. When they first started dating, he didn't mention his wife's disturbances, so she was unaware. Her family tried to stop her from dating him, warning her that his wife had only been dead for 2 years and could still cause trouble. They suggested that if they truly cared for each other, he should take her to his wife's grave to ask for her permission to proceed with their relationship. However, they never did this, and continued their relationship without any issues, as he never spoke about his wife's disturbances. Over time, his son became aware of their relationship and seemed to gradually accept her as his stepmother. They lived together in her rental house, and 2 years later, they had a son together. Despite his quiet nature, which suited her temperament, things were peaceful until their son was born. From the day their son was born until the second week, he was easy to care for and rarely cried. However, starting from the third week, coinciding with a visit from his older brother, the baby started crying incessantly, looking at the ceiling as if playing with someone unseen. This behavior continued, and she recalled an incident during her pregnancy when she felt pushed from behind, causing her to fall. An elderly woman suggested she might be followed and disturbed by someone. Concerned, her mother consulted a spiritual advisor who revealed that the disturbances were caused by the man's deceased wife, who was still jealous and hadn't moved on. The advisor recommended rituals to appease her. Despite living near a temple, the woman felt hopeless as the disturbances persisted. Reflecting on past events, she recalled seeing the man keep his house brightly lit at night, which he explained as a habit. Now, she believes the late wife returned to disturb them, as confirmed by multiple advisors who said the deceased wife often appeared to her husband but never harmed him. This woman is harming none other than her own mother and child. That's why she said that during this period, she and her husband often argue. They argue about every little thing. Now, she's upset and wants to send the child to her husband's house to be taken care of, but she can't because he doesn't care for the child as well as she does. Currently, they're trying to live together for the sake of their child, but she notices something strange about her husband. Sometimes he loves the child dearly, but at other times, he stares at the child as if he resents him. He often seems lost in thought, as if contemplating something deeply troubling. She remembers a teacher mentioning that the spirits of her husband's ancestors allow the spirit of his late wife to disturb her, which is why the spirit frequently visits her place to trouble her child, making it difficult for her to care for him. Despite their efforts to live together, she feels exhausted, both by the circumstances and by the challenges of raising her child, who often shows troubling behaviors. At times, she feels like giving up and sending the child to live with his father, but she's unsure if he can take proper care of him. When she talks about her husband's late wife, he gets angry and refuses to discuss it, fixating on his late wife. It's hard to explain, but from her stories, it's clear her life is under immense pressure. Her voice sounds tired, and she records these stories for Duway. She says her husband is also exhausted, no longer working, just lying around all day. She shares her story with Duway, hoping that someone might know how to help her overcome these issues or how to help her child return to normal. She has given Duway a phone number, displayed on the screen, for anyone who might have advice or solutions to contact her and offer guidance to lighten her burden. After sharing her story, she advises women who are considering remarrying or marrying someone who has been married before to be cautious. They should check if the previous wife has passed away and if her spirit might cause trouble, to avoid experiencing what she has gone through. Now, moving on to the second story titled In Life and Death, Still Friends, this incident happened just over a year ago. A young man recounts having a very close friend named Tu. They were inseparable, having grown up together, studied together from elementary to high school, and even shared a room while working. They were like brothers. One night, while riding home together on a motorbike, an accident occurred. Tu, who was driving, was hit directly by another motorbike. The impact was severe, and Two, being in front, suffered more. He was run over. His funeral was held at the narrator's house, not Two's. Two's family was very poor, and his parents worked hard to support his education. Their house was only a few doors down from narrator's. People wondered why the funeral wasn't held at Two's house. The reason was that Two was an excellent student, always achieving top grades, which motivated his parents to work tirelessly to support his education. Despite the narrator's family being better off, they couldn't match Two's academic performance. Two often stayed over at the narrator's house to study, and his parents even supported him financially when his own parents couldn't. On the night of the accident, Two was staying over to study. Around 1 or 2 a.m., a fire broke out at Two's house while his parents were asleep. The fire was too intense, and since the doors were locked, his parents perished in the blaze. After their deaths and the destruction of their home, Two was devastated. He requested permission to bury his parents on the land where their house once stood, but the landowner refused. As it was not their property, it was already decided by others. Yet there was still a demand to bury there, which was not acceptable. Therefore, your parents set aside a small plot of land behind the house for Two's parents to be laid to rest. Since there was ample space behind your house, after arranging a proper burial for Two's parents, your father went to the garden to offer prayers and lit incense at their graves. During the prayer, he casually wished for a lottery win, promising to renovate the shrine and offer a roasted pig as a thank you if he won. Surprisingly, after that day, your father won not one, but 3 lottery tickets. He then renovated the area beautifully and offered a grand roasted pig, as promised. With the winnings, he purchased approximately 38 acres of land and still had a few billion left over. With this substantial amount, your father began doing charity work, providing coffins for impoverished families who couldn't afford burial. Since then, your family seemed blessed, prospering like a ship catching the wind. After burying Two's parents, Two had nowhere to live, so your parents invited him to stay, treating him like their own child. Two was considered family, and whatever he wanted, your parents provided, just as they did for you. Sadly, after Two passed away, your parents buried him next to his parents. Once you recovered, you resumed working, but strange events began to occur. You had another motorcycle accident, but it was less severe than the previous one with Two. This time, you were alone and fell without injury. Reflecting on the incident, you realized you hadn't made any driving errors, nor was there any vehicle that collided with you. It seemed as if someone pushed you from the side, causing you to fall. Interestingly, a truck driver behind you had already braked before you fell, as if he had been warned of the impending accident. The driver explained he often experienced supernatural encounters and had seen a young man sitting behind you and an older man shaking your bike, causing it to fall. The young man helped you up and then disappeared. The driver wasn't sure if they were people or spirits, but felt something was following him. Later, while working late at your company, you nearly fell down the stairs, feeling as if someone kicked your leg from behind. Fortunately, you grabbed the handrail and felt a force pulling you back, preventing a severe fall. This incident scared you, leading to your resignation and relocation due to the distance to your new job. Your new room was conveniently located near your workplace, but on the first night, you dreamt of Two visiting, sitting beside you and talking. These dreams continued nightly, and although comforting, they seemed to affect your vitality and work performance. Returning home for your grandfather's memorial, your mother noticed your pale complexion, prompting a hospital visit. Despite appearing healthy, your family sought spiritual guidance, where it was revealed a spirit was following you. During the session, you lost consciousness, and the spirit was allowed to communicate through you, explaining why it followed you. After you woke up, you heard from others that the spirit was actually that of your close friend, Tuesday. He returned not to cause trouble, but to protect you. He mentioned that in previous incidents, like when you fell off your bike or down the stairs, it was another spirit pushing you. That spirit wanted you to die, but Two intervened to save you. Once people realized it was Two's spirit protecting you, your family felt relieved. However, they were curious about the identity of the malicious spirit. Later, Tu's spirit possessed someone and revealed that the malevolent spirit was a 67-year-old man who harbored a deep grudge against you. This man wanted you to fall and die. Tu also mentioned that on nights when thieves lurked around your house, he scared them away, preventing break-ins. There are 4 spirits residing in your current rental home. Tu said that whenever he visited and talked to you, something bad would happen, so he stayed to protect you. Initially, when you moved in, the spirits didn't want you there, but Tu convinced them to let you stay peacefully. These spirits were a family, an old man, a couple, and their child. Tu asked you to make offerings for them. A spiritual teacher gave you a protective amulet and advised Tu to move on and reincarnate. Tu agreed, but requested to visit you once a week. The teacher consented. After returning to your rental, you made offerings but felt a sense of emptiness, as if someone had left. It seemed Tu had moved on. Time passed, and you had another accident, similar to before, as if someone pushed you. You told your mother, who took you to the spiritual teacher again. The teacher identified the spirit as a 67-year-old man. Your mother realized it was Mr. Kai from your neighborhood, who had a troubled life and died in debt. Your father refused to give him a charity coffin, leading to the spirit's grudge against you. The man's wife wanted money instead of a coffin to pay debts, which wasn't the purpose of the charity. The teacher confronted the spirit, using a wooden sword to expel it from you, and then trapped it in a jar. Afterward, your life improved, with no more mysterious accidents. Sadly, you never saw Tu's spirit again, possibly because he reincarnated. You remain grateful to Tu for his protection. Your story ends here. The next story is quite unusual and poses a big question for you. It was sent by a female friend, but the main character is her close friend, whom we'll call Yin. Yin was a very close friend since elementary school, living just 100 meters away. But since middle school, Yin showed strange signs and eventually moved away. Recently, Yin shared these strange experiences with you. Yin has a peculiar habit of frequently talking to herself in her mind, as if conversing with a second personality. For example, when cooking and accidentally spilling oil on her hand, she mentally tells herself, "You spilled oil on my hand." Or when she cuts herself with a knife, she thinks, "You accidentally cut my hand." It's as if there's someone in her mind speaking to her, and she can't control it. This started when she was in middle school. Every night, just as she was about to fall asleep, she would see a figure standing at her door, a completely dark silhouette, more terrifying than a shadow. Each time it appeared, it would grab her legs and drag her from her bedroom to the kitchen, and from the kitchen to the living room. All she could do was cling to the bed or door, unable to scream or resist. This would happen every few nights, lasting until around 2 or 3 in the morning. When the figure was about to enter her room, Yin would draw a character in her palm and, as it approached, press the character onto its forehead, causing it to disappear. Sometimes, she would recite the name of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, and the figure would vanish. Despite this, it would reappear every few days. Oddly, Yin never mentioned whether she informed her family about these incidents, which seemed strange to her friend Du. Why didn't her family notice the disturbances at night? In 2015, after moving to a new house, the dark figure followed her and became more aggressive. Her new bedroom was upstairs, and the figure would drag her from there to the living room on the ground floor. After this, Yin finally told her family. Her mother got her a blessed ivory bracelet, and her father suggested keeping a knife under her pillow, but these measures didn't help. Later, when Yin opened a pharmacy and hired an employee named Tao, the figure continued to disturb her. One night, it dragged Yin from the loft to the pharmacy counter. Yin noticed that the figure had long hair but couldn't see its face. On another night, Yin saw Tao talking to herself while using her phone. Initially, Yin thought Tao was just mumbling while texting a friend. However, Tao suddenly got up and tried to climb over the loft railing, claiming there was someone below. Yin, freaked it, told Tao there was no one there, and Tao lay back down. Tao was known to be spiritually sensitive, and a fortune teller once said she was haunted. One night, when Tao was away, Yin stayed alone at the pharmacy. Around 2 a.m., she received a strange, long text message from an unknown number. The message was unsettling, but Yin couldn't recall the exact content. Scared, she threw the phone aside and tried to sleep. Then the phone rang. It was the same number, but no one spoke when she answered. By morning, the message and the number had disappeared from her phone. Exhausted, Yin decided to sleep on the ground floor. That night, the figure dragged her to the bathroom. This time, instead of fear, Yin felt numb and challenged the figure mentally, daring it to harm her. She began reciting prayers, and eventually, the figure released her. Later, Yin's mother invited a spiritual leader to bless their home and asked the spirit to leave Yin alone. The leader revealed that the spirit was Yin's older sister, who had passed away as a fetus. Yin, being spiritually compatible with her sister, was constantly haunted. Although this happened years ago, Yin and her brother still experienced disturbances. Her brother, who practices spirituality, isn't as afraid, but Yin continues to be haunted. After hearing Yin's story, her friend Wei shared it, hoping someone could offer advice to help Yin. Despite years of disturbances, they continue to affect her daily life. If anyone has suggestions, they are encouraged to comment below.